Welcome to my series of basketball videos where I'll be comparing various NBA greats against each other. I'm doing this because I find that a lot of the basketball videos comparing players on YouTube are too focused on the big names and sometimes compare players from different positions. Lots of people compare Jordan to LeBron and Kobe to Duncan, for example, due to their similar levels of achievements, but since those players play different positions and have different styles of play, it's not an interesting comparison. In this series, I want to do comparisons between not just more well-known players, but players from days past, in the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, and the ABA as well, that most modern fans probably do not have too much knowledge about. Also, as much as possible, I want to compare players that play similar positions and/or similar play styles. To me, that's a more interesting and fruitful comparison. I'll be using 8 different metrics to judge each player. Scoring. This category will be defined by each player's career points per game, peak points per game, both regular season and playoffs, and number of scoring titles. Rebounding. This category will be defined by each player's career rebounds per game, peak rebounds per game, both regular season and playoffs, and number of rebounding titles. Passing. This category will be defined by each player's career assists per game, peak assists per game, both in regular season and playoffs, and number of assist titles. Efficiency advanced metrics. This category will be defined by each player's career true shooting percentage, PER, and win shares per 48. Reason I use true shooting percentage is because it's more fair to guards. Defense. This category will be defined by each player's all defensive selections, defensive win shares, and defensive player of the year awards. The reason I'm not using blocks, steals, or defensive box plus minus is because I want to compare the achievements of older players that modern fans might not have too much knowledge about, and players in the 1960s and early 1970s do not have these stats tracked. Awards. This category will be defined by all-star appearances, all-NBA selections, MVPs, finals MVPs, and championships as a top 3 player. The reason I have to count championships as a top 3 player on the team is because otherwise you'll get into the situation where, for example, Robert Horry has 7 rings and Karl Malone has 0, and it's not representative of how much better a player is if you weren't a top 3 player on that team contributing to a championship. Also, I'll be including ABA stats and awards and using them equivalent to their respective ABA stats and awards. Also, no All-NBA third team selections are included because All-NBA third teams weren't added until the late 1980s, which is unfair to older players. Playoffs. This category will be defined by how many Eastern Conference Finals or Western Conference Finals and Finals a player has been to, and how many championships they won as a top 3 player on the team. Yes, this is supplementary to the awards category because it also rewards players for making it far in the playoffs, even if they don't necessarily win at all. Totals. This category will be defined by longevity, how many total points, rebounds, assists, and win shares a player has accumulated throughout their career, and rewards a player's durability. After all, a lot of people say the best ability is availability. And of course, this is only going to be my opinion from comparing the available metrics, since I've not watched most of these players live or even been born when some of these players have been playing. And to keep it fair, I'm judging them based on how they did in their own era. There's no comparing what this NBA player played in today's era or the 1960s, none of that. It'll be strictly based on their stats and accomplishments within their own era against that era's competition, which makes the most sense to me. So I hope you guys enjoy this comparison video and hopefully learn something new from it. In the 37th episode, we'll take a look at 2 Hall of Fame level point guards, both of whom won championships for dynasties but who were not the main superstars for their teams and preferred to play valuable supporting roles for their teams. Maurice Cheeks is best known as the main playmaker and point guard for the 1980s Philadelphia 76ers dynasty led by Dr. J. Julius Erving and later Moses Malone. He supplanted the team with his great passing skills and crafty defense. Rajon Rondo played a similar role for his teams but is most well known as a member of the Big 3 Boston Celtics dynasty, who were led by Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen, also known for his great passing skills and crafty defense. But which player had the greater career? Let's find out. In the scoring category, neither player was asked to be the main scorer for their teams, but one thing is clear. Both Cheeks and Rondo raised their game in the playoffs when their teams demanded it. Cheeks averaged 11.1 points per game for his career, peaking at 15.6 points per game in 1987. In the playoffs, he raises his average to 14.4 points per game, peaking at 20.8 points per game in 1986. Rondo averaged 9.8 points per game for his career, peaking at 13.7 per game in 2010 and 2013. In the playoffs, Rondo was known as Playoff Rondo because just like Cheeks, he raises his averages to 12.5 points per game, peaking at 17.3 points per game in 2012. So it's interesting because while neither player were great scorers, they definitely had an offensive skill set, especially in the playoffs when their team needed it. However, I would give the slight edge to Cheeks here as he was asked to carry a bit more of the offensive load at times than Rondo did, his average reflecting that. So this one goes to Maurice Cheeks. In the rebounding category, this one isn't particularly close. Cheeks averaged a paltry 2.8 rebounds per game for his career, peaking at 3.5 per game in 1980, and 3.4 rebounds per game in the playoffs, peaking at 4.7 per game in 1986. Rondo averaged 4.5 rebounds per game for his career, peaking at 6 boards a game in 2016, raising it to 5.6 rebounds per game in the playoffs, peaking at an astonishing 9.7 rebounds per game in 2009. Both players are listed at 6'1" in height, but Rondo was clearly the better rebounder, and what's been more impressive is that Rondo's rebounding numbers are closer to that of a shooting guard or a small forward rather than that of a point guard of his height. Rondo is known as one of the best rebounding point guards of all time and a triple-double machine, and so this one easily goes to him. In the passing category, both players were excellent playmakers. Cheeks averaged 6.7 assists per game for his career, peaking at 8.4 per game in 1982, and 6.9 assists per game in the playoffs, peaking at 13 a game in 1989. Rondo averaged 7.9 assists per game for his career, peaking at 11.7 per game in 2012 and 2016, raising it to 8.5 assists per game in the playoffs, peaking at 12.2 per game in 2018. Although Cheeks was a fantastic passer in his own right, Rondo was one of the best passers of his era. He led the league in assists 3 times and has higher averages across the board, so I'll have to give the edge in this category to Rondo. In the efficiency and advanced metrics category, it isn't particularly close, as Rondo was known to be a very inefficient and poor shooter, and that affected his advanced metrics across the board. Cheeks was a much more efficient scorer and leads Rondo in true shooting percentage, PER, and win shares per 48, so this one will easily go to Mo Cheeks. In the defense category, both players are quite solid defenders at their position. Cheeks has more all-defensive first-team selections, but both have about the same number of all-defensive selections and a similar number of defensive win shares as well. Although I don't track steals per game, it's worth to note that both players were known for being quite good ball thieves. So this category is quite close, and I'll have to call this one a tie. In the awards category, both players were 4-time All-Stars and both won championships. Rondo has won more championships than Cheeks as part of the LA Lakers, however he was definitely more of a complementary role player during that run, as the heavy load was carried by LeBron and Anthony Davis on that team. So I would say that Rondo's 2008 championship he played more of a role in, being the next best player after the Celtics Big Three. Cheeks was the 3rd best player on the 1983 76ers that dominated the playoffs, led by Moses Malone and Dr. J. So overall, I feel that their awards are similar enough, so I'll have to call this one a tie as well. In the playoffs category, they have exactly the same resume. They both reached 3 finals and 2 Eastern Conference finals. So I don't think anyone has the edge here. This category is also a tie. In the longevity category, I'll have to give this one to Mo Cheeks, as he has more total points, assists, and win shares, with Rondo leading only in total rebounds, so this one will go to him. So when all the categories are summed up, Rondo takes the rebounding and passing categories, while Cheeks takes the scoring, efficiency, and totals categories, with the rest being a tie, giving Maurice Cheeks the win. Maurice Cheeks is an underrated player in all-time PG discussions, as his low scoring probably leads many people to overlook his impact, but he was one of the best playmakers and best defenders of his era, and was a crucial piece of those 1980s 76ers squads which made 3 finals in 4 years during the early 80s. Along with Andrew Toney and Bobby Jones, Cheeks could be considered the next best player on those 76ers teams after Dr. J and Moses Malone. Rajon Rondo, on the other hand, although he bounced around on a few teams later in his career, will most likely be remembered as one of the all-time great Boston Celtics point guards alongside Bob Cousy, JoJo White, Tiny Archibald, and Dennis Johnson. Rondo also seems to be underrated due to his low scoring averages, but just like Cheeks, he made a huge impact on those teams through his great playmaking, leadership, and defensive skill set. I hope you guys enjoyed this comparison. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next comparison video.